time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello and welcome everybody to this episode of the Maturepreneur Podcast. I am your hostess, Jeanette Anderson, and I am happy to bring you people who would rather inspire than retire. Today, I have a perfect example of that with me, Ruthie Gray. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Ruthie, and welcome, Ruthie. I'm glad you're here with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And where are you right now in the world?
I am in St. Pete, Florida.
Lovely. No wonder you look so warm. I have my background blurred because it's depressingly snowy out that window and I don't want to see it. So, so let me tell you a bit about Ruthie. Then we'll get into the, juicy things you wouldn't guess and figure out. And then we're going to have a conversation around her expertise and how she got where she got, but also how she thinks about technology in ways that might surprise and inspire you. So Ruthie Gray is a wife, Gigi, which if you didn't know, it means a grandma, empty nester and content marketing coach for Christian creatives, specializing in Instagram and newsletter growth. Her hobbies include Florida beach walks, RVing with her hubby, and reading historical fiction. Ruthie is the founder of Authentic Online Marketing School and podcasts at Authentic Online Marketing. So easy your mom or Carol Brady can do it. Connect with her on Instagram or her website at AuthenticOnlineMarketing.com. So I love that. And obviously, it's a good reference for your target demographic. If they don't know who Carol Brady is, they probably aren't people, right?
That's right.
Very good, subtle marketing and positioning in your demographic. So I love the various things about you that give us a bit of a flavor of you, but tell us something we wouldn't guess by looking at you, by looking at your website or your bio. What's something that might surprise people to know about you?
I am an accomplished pianist.
Oh, cool.
I took lessons from a young child, from the chairman of the music committee of the college that my parents worked at. All the way up through my second year of college. She left then and I continued on with the other chairman, but I got a degree in music and piano.
Oh, interesting. That's very interesting. I did not know that, but I notice it's not one of your current hobbies. Do you still enjoy playing the piano, or is it kind of a no, been there, done that?
I enjoy it when I'm at church and am on the piano bench.
Okay. So you like
that forces me to practice, but I just really enjoy playing with the band. So
okay, got it. That's cool. And is that something that you were thinking of going into as a career, or did you go into it as a career?
I did for a while. It was something that I had always done growing up. I was always put in these positions because my dad was a pastor, of being the church pianist. But it really stretched me and grew me way beyond my abilities at sometimes. But I taught music in school when my kids were young, and I taught tons of piano lessons. So it did its job.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. There is a correlation between how you grew up with the pastor and as a father and so forth. So let's talk a little bit before we launch into the what you do. Let's talk about why do you do what you do? Why are you so passionate about the work that you do that you're still doing it?
Honestly, I know that this is my step in the second half of life in the empty nest, is to encourage other empty nesters to pursue their passions. I feel like it's my God-given step that the Lord has brought me to, and that's why I do it. And I derive so much joy and satisfaction from it, and I see the results in these people, and so that's why I do it.
Okay, cool. I love that. And I can hear the passion in it and the calling. How does that tie to Instagram for you? So you do Instagram and technology consulting, well, and around Instagram and growing a newsletter. How did you come to that work?
I just kind of fell into it. I was trying to uh, figure out what I could do online to actually generate funds to support my blogging hobby.
Okay.
I was spending all kinds of time, and I was a parenting blogger, but it wasn't making any money. And my husband said, you deserve to be paid for your time.
Mhm.
If you want to, you can go get a job out in the workforce and make money. I said, no, I don't want to do that. So um, I just realized that I had a flair for Instagram, and people were asking me, other bloggers were asking me, how are you doing that? How are you doing the video and all that? And I realized this was something I could teach. And so I started beta testing, and then I started releasing courses and coaching. Eventually, well, I ran a bunch of people's accounts for them. And then I realized there's not a lot of joy in that. So I can coach these people how to do this. So that just, I kind of worked my way up.
Okay.
That's how, really.
So most people, when they hear the word blog, or at least certainly in my head, I think written posts and like an online diary
Mhm.
or a series of articles. But then you mentioned Instagram, and you were using that as your blogging platform. How did that
Mhm.
come about or relate? Because I don't think most people put
Well,
those together.
I didn't use it as my blogging platform, but I used it as promo to get people over to my platform. So that was my second social media promo of choice. My first really was Facebook,
Mhm.
but I just really liked Instagram. I liked the images there, and I liked the different ways that you could share your life and share your business. And so I honestly quit Instagram 3 times before I went back and figured it out.
Okay.
But it was just something that I really enjoyed. And so that's why it stuck.
Well, and so tell us about like kind of a little bit about your journey in terms of your work and were you a stay-at-home mom? Did you work in corporate? How long were you blogging? Like and how long have you been doing the Instagram work? Just so people kind of get a sense of your journey.
Okay, my journey took a lot of zigs and zags. When the kids were little, I stayed at home, but I sold Mary Kay. That's where I got my marketing expertise, and I did very well with it. And then that went by the wayside as the kids grew, and I went to work at the school, the private school, to pay for their education, and that's when I taught music and all of that. Then after that, I got a certification, personal trainer certification in aerobics, and went to work running the fitness and eating, dietary things for the state in an establishment, a gym that was also like a physical therapy place. And so I did that for a few years. That was very fun. And then from that I was transitioning into blogging, and it was just a hobby at first. And then I realized I really like the technical side of this and building a blog and doing all these things. So I transitioned into my parenting blog and wrote a little ebook for parents about anger and raising kids, which was very relatable. And then that's when I transitioned over to what I do now.
Okay.
So
So how old were you when you started your blogging?
let's see, I was probably 45, I'd
Okay.
say.
And so, and your kids were a little older then, a little bit.
Yes, they were all older. They were either in high school or entering college. There were four of them.
So you kind of started the parenting thing, not when you were a young parent, but after you had been through the process.
Yeah,
So talking about it from being on the other side, and that it was that topic because that's what you knew really well. Is that why you started with the parenting?
I was very passionate about it also because I had younger parents in real life always asking me for advice. And
Okay.
I would meet with moms and we would, I would just give them some advice on what worked for me or what I thought might work for them. It was just a natural segue.
Okay. And so how long have you been doing that, kind of transitioning into the technical work? And then when did you start doing it as your business?
Well, let's see. I probably blogged about parenting for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And then that was when I transitioned over to Instagram, realized that I could actually be paid for all of the time. And so then that I think I've been doing Instagram, teaching Instagram for about 6, going on 7 years now.
Okay. And you mentioned, I wanted to kind of, this is going down a slightly sideways rabbit hole, but you've mentioned a couple times that, your husband said, yes, you can be paid, and you realized you could be paid. I think that's a very common path that a lot of women travel is they do something from passion, they do it for the love of it, but they put a lot of work, heart, and soul into it. I literally just had a call with a woman who's been giving away her expertise for years, despite having invested tens of thousands in developing that expertise.
Mm.
Um, what is it that you think had you not really focusing on having it be a business? What was the limiting beliefs that were getting in the way, or what was it that you were thinking that kept you from getting paid for what you did?
Honestly, I thought that I didn't have a like piece of paper, like a certificate, like a coaching certificate or something like that, that warranted me getting paid.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was good enough.
It's amazing how many women think I just need that piece of paper, that validation from someone else that says I know what I'm talking about. And then I'll go get another one and another one. And there's never enough pieces of paper to actually prove that I'm valuable and know what I'm talking about. So,
Mhm.
how did that shift for you? What shifted it for you?
Well, what helped was testing the market. The first thing I did was, um, like I said, I did a beta test of what I knew. It was just like a 3-week Facebook group on Instagram, teaching what I knew about Instagram. And there was all kinds of response from that. And I thought, okay, now I can repurpose this into a course. And that course sold. In the meantime, I my blogging mentor was looking. I saw in a like we talked all the time. We were friends in real life, but I saw that she put in a Facebook group a request for someone to run her Instagram account. And that's not something that she and I had ever talked about before. And I thought, I've seen her Instagram. I could definitely run this account. And so I reached out to her and she's like, really? What are you doing on Instagram? And I'm like, well, this, and this is what is happening here. And so she took me on for a trial basis, 3 months, and we tripled her views in the first month. And so that was a huge ego boost, really, because I thought if I can do this for her and she's spreading the word, I can do this for other people too.
Right.
And so then it just started snowballing after that.
Okay. So I want to just feedback what I heard you say is the process and the steps, because I think for many women in particular, and people in general, especially those who might be coming into an entrepreneurial field, perhaps from corporate or from being an employee or not being employed, it can be really challenging to make that mindset shift to getting paid for our expertise. And so what I heard you say was you got up the nerve to do an initial test, a baby test of 3 weeks, and added some value, got a few people interested, and then got some great validation in terms of positive feedback about, yes, this was valuable, yes, this was helpful, this was amazing. That gave you enough courage to then kind of take that next step. And when someone said, here's something I need, for you to say, I can do that, even though you had never done it. And then got validation from that. Yes, indeed, this works. I know what I'm doing. And that helped reinforce the confidence. So it's taking the action step, risking putting it out there, getting feedback, having that validated, going and upping the risk factor, if you will, or the steps that you're taking until you kind of get that, yes, I know what I'm talking about. It sounds like that was your process. Does that resonate with you?
That's exactly what I did. And that's how I do all of my new steps. If I am going to branch out into something else, I'm going to beta test it first to see. You've got to test and see if there's a market for what you have. And if you have a flair for actually delivering the product.
Yeah. And if you actually like it, because just because you can doesn't mean you have to or that you should, because
Exactly.
I spent 8 years consulting in the high tech industry because I could speak geek and translate between that and the business, and was very well compensated and had quite a monopoly because back then there wasn't a lot of people who bridged that gap. And then walked away from a lucrative consulting market because they really weren't my people and it really wasn't my joy and my juice and my jam. So I went back to my first love, which is entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business, because in the doing of it, it was clear that they weren't my people. Yeah,
Mhm.
but nope, not my people. So speaking of which, who are your people? Who do you serve? Who are your ideal people that you love to work with?
I love to work with women my age, really, women ages 45 and up, who are really, they're releasing their kids from the nest and they're ready for the second half of life. They're ready to do something bold and courageous. And they are, um, usually they're trying to build, an Instagram presence or whatever, but sometimes they're just trying to get advice on building a business. And is this really worthy of my time?
Mm. Is the business worthy of my time, you mean? Or the marketing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And so you support them with clarifying both the kind of the direction and intention, but also some of the technical ins and outs of that marketing vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned uh, newsletters as well. So how did that come about as part of that?
Well, I wanted another facet, not just Instagram, to add to my school. And so a natural segue is newsletter optimization, because so many of my clients, I find when they're trying to build an Instagram account, they don't actually have an email list.
Mm.
And I do my best to educate my followers and my clients that you can't put your eggs in somebody else's basket. You need your own uh, you know, domain. You need to move off of rented property onto owned real estate. And that's where the email list comes in. And that's where you get way more chance of people hearing from you, because there's a 30% more chance there
Mhm.
than there is on social.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what advice you would give people who are perhaps coming into business for the first time later in life, in their second act or something like that, who are, if not technophobic, are techno adverse or social media adverse in particular, because there is quite a bit of resistance to going down those rabbit holes and, oh, it's a waste of time and so forth and so on. So, what would you say to them in terms of perhaps how they're thinking about it. Like, how do they need to correct their thinking about social media?
Well, I work with a lot of social media haters. That's why they come to me, because I make it so simple. There's a lot of perception about social media that it's just too hard and you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to look professional the whole time. And that's not what I teach. What I teach is you need to deliver who you are, because there's only one you, and you have a message to deliver the way only you can, and there's someone out there for you, and they need to see the real person. You don't have to have it all together, and you can simplify, and you don't have to do 18 reels a day, and you don't have to do all of the different covers for your photos and look all polished. If you'll look at my Instagram, you'll see it's not perfect.
Mhm.
It's color coded, it's sort of cohesive, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
What I do is put out my message and my people respond, and they're very responsive, because they know that I am delivering my message in my way that makes sense to them. So that's what I tell people, is it can be simplified.
Yeah, there's some great nuggets in what you just said. One is I put out my message my way, being authentically you, and my people, the people who are my people, respond. If they don't respond, they're not your people. So rather than, I think a lot of mistakes that people make is I have to be all things to all people on all social media. And
Mhm.
that just blows your brains out, but it's also not authentic. And so then you end up being nothing
No.
special to anyone, and it's highly ineffective. So really honing in on showing up as you so people know who you are and can relate to you, providing value that they appreciate, and the people who appreciate you will respond and those who don't won't, and that's a great way to filter out who it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to give an example of that. There are many gurus on Instagram. They're all younger than me. They do everything fast, click, 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 and they show all this stuff, and they send out tons of content. But the people my age cannot follow them. They need someone to slow down, tell them how to do something simply, and not 65 things to do at once. And so that's why it works for me, because I know who my people are. And that's what, your audience needs to learn too, is that it's okay if you're not for everyone. It's better if you're not, so that you can garner the attention in the audience and the potential clients that are going to serve you well, and that you can serve well.
Absolutely, amen, sister. But because it is one of the biggest mistakes that most people make, especially those new to marketing and or business, is that they really do. It's a lot like if you're new to dating, you try and be who you think people want you to be, and you try and you wear masks and you try and show up all perfect and polished and so forth, and you end up not meeting the person that is really meant for you because you're not being you. So your mask is
Yep.
meeting their mask, and then you wonder how come there isn't, connection
A
after.
connection.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what piece of advice would you give, maybe a 60 or 70-year-old woman who's thinking of making a change in her life right now, and about being seen and heard out in the world. Because really, what you help people do is be seen and heard in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I've already said the number one thing is to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Decide what you're going to share of yourself. You don't have to share everything. I don't. Nobody wants to know everything about you. They don't want to know your dirty and laundry. That's not what social's for. But you want to be your own unique self and figure out how you can deliver your message. That is, what can you say that is a little bit different than what other people say,
Mm-hmm.
or a different twist.
Yeah. Yeah. I really advocate that people see if they can find a contrarian perspective. because we've all heard the same things over and over and over. So how can you say it the opposite, that perhaps you'll find your way somewhere in the middle, but perhaps you need to be that opposite voice. And I really the piece about being willing to be yourself is such a big part of it. But there is a lot of people who have this belief that who I am is not that interesting. Who I am is,
Mhm.
as you said earlier, I got to get a certification, I got to get a piece of paper, I have to have some kind of validation. Um, and you did talk about, yes, I found that that's not the case, but there are still lots of people older, have tons of experience. Like, again, literally was talking to someone this morning, 70 years old, huge amounts of experience, heart, capability, and wisdom, going back for yet another certification.
Mm.
What would you tell people out there who are saying, um, why would anyone want to listen to me?
Get started. Just get started. Um, because Instagram is my expertise, that's what I'm going to speak from. But something that I tell people to do is just start posting and see what sticks, what relates to people. And stories, Instagram stories are my favorite because that's kind of the behind the scenes.
Mm.
And you can share parts of your day, your walk, your coffee. If you can do polls, or your coffee or tea person. But people love to be nosy about other people, even if you're not that interesting. I coached a lady once who said, I don't want to do stories. I'm not that interesting. All I do is go to knee rehabilitation and walk my dog. There's nothing interesting about that. And I said, I guarantee you, Jamie, if you share photos of yourself in the rehabilitation facility and photos of your dog, people love pets, and talk about him and fun things he does, people are going to start responding. And she said, I don't really want to do video. And I'm like, just do it. And don't you know, that's how she started getting her traction. And she started getting responses from other people who were in the same situation with the same knee injury or ankle injury or whatever. And that's how it starts. So you start sharing your life and you start sharing your message and you see what sticks, because if you don't share it, then you don't know what sticks.
Well, that's true. And I got to tell you, I totally understand that. I constantly have to push myself to share about my life because I think it's just kind of, why would anybody care what I had for dinner, or why do they care that I'm going here or there? And I have to remember, first of all, I do have a very different life. I live a polyhomorous or a mobile lifestyle. I don't live the kind of lifestyle that most people do. I'm a digital nomad. I sold my house and everything I own, and I literally just travel all the time, and live in different kinds of situations. So right now I'm house sitting and pest sitting for a friend. So I'll be here for a week and then I'm back house sitting for another friend and so forth. I think that's normal. That's my normal. So I don't think anybody would be interested. Um, how do we, like, I know you said just do it, but is there any other advice you can give about helping people get over well, my normal is not that interesting?
Well, again, I think you have to share. I think you take a picture,
Yeah.
of what you're doing and write a little caption about it, um, and then end with a question. Like, do you own your own home, or do you travel extensively?
Right.
It could be that simple. What you want is to invite engagement.
Yeah.
And so you want to always end with a question or some kind of call to action. Drop a heart emoji if you can relate to this, and you want to you just want to share your life, but also, like, maybe there's a pain point that gets on your nerves, something gets on your nerves. I guarantee you, if it gets on your nerves, it probably gets on somebody else's nerves too, and they'll respond to that.
Okay. So let's talk just a little bit more about business. This is predominantly for my own interest as well. But how do you go from pictures of your dog and talking about, knee rehabilitation to having a sales conversation with someone? Because, people say develop this relationship, engage with them, etc. That feels, I have so many unanswered DMs and Facebook messages and LinkedIn messages and so forth. It feels so daunting to keep up with the engagement of those quote unquote relationships. How do you manage that? Like, what's your practical tip for managing all of that engagement? And how do you turn that into a business conversation?
Well, you don't just share photos of your dog or your walk. So you kind of start out doing that, but you also are dripping out your offering. That has to happen. It's part of marketing, but it's part of earning trust. So you do that, but you also have to make sure that you're taking time, ideally every single day, to answer your DMs and your notifications, because if you do let them pile up, they're just going to seem monumental. But my whole thing is, my mantra is community grows opportunity. And my expertise is in community building and teaching my people how to community build. And I have a mentorship that is all about supporting each other. And it's a vital, beautiful thing. And so you have to start earning people's trust by returning their messages and their DMs. But there has to be a time limit on it. Maybe you take 15 minutes a day and you do that. But I feel like it's vital. I feel like if you are really going to make some strong connections and cultivate and develop the clients that you need, you have to have that personal touch.
I really like that line, community grows opportunity. I think that's a very catchy and memorable, but also really practical way of looking at things too. And yeah, it is a balance of personal and content and value added and some calls to action to engage people. And yes, doing anything in bite-sized pieces is way better than trying to tackle it all at once. I am working on getting the discipline to do 15 minutes a day to kind of keep that down and current. So let's make a little leap for a moment and talk about your business side of the business. So leaving the technology aside for a moment, what would you say has been your biggest challenge for you in building your business? Where and as you age and work and contribute at this stage of your life, what's been your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge is probably accounting and bookkeeping. So I have help with it because I am not a genius at that kind of thing, and I'm not good at staying on top of it.
I hear you. So calling in support for the things that are not our area of our zone of genius is a great idea. Has there
100%.
been any challenges for you in terms of growing the business to the way that you want, building your lifestyle around your business versus or building your business around your lifestyle, whichever way you're approaching it? Any of those challenges?
I'd say that the women that I work with would say the same thing. It's fitting in all of the duties with your adult children and your grandchildren and your adult parents who I've been a caregiver for 14 years of both my parents right off the bat in 2010. So it's going on 14 years. And then my dad passed away about 3 years ago. And I still take care of mom. But it's communication and delegating. I remember when my oldest daughter, she's the mom of the first two grandkids. And I think she thought that we were just going to hang out every day.
Mm.
And she didn't really take my blogging seriously. She just thought it was like a hobby and that I could just let it go.
Mhm.
And I said, no, I really mean to do something with this. And she said, so you're serious about this? And I said, yes. And I had to draw some healthy boundaries and communicate that. And I've had to communicate that with my mom and the rest of my kids. And so I think it's a lot of times we don't want to communicate or we don't want to draw boundaries. We do want to serve our families. We want to be very much involved with them. My family is my first priority, really, when it comes down to it. But the second half of life, we realize that we don't have that much time left.
Mhm.
And what do we want to do with the time we have left? And this is what I want to do. And
Mhm.
so I think you have to determine that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there was a lot of things in there that you mentioned, one being the sandwich generation, trying to juggle all those balls, which tends to
Mhm.
fall more on women than men. And
Yeah.
so building a business amongst all of those other responsibilities can be exhausting too.
Mhm.
So taking care of ourselves in that process, because it's a lot to be a full-time caregiver, to be a grandma, to be a wife, to maintain a home, to do all of those things and run a business full time,
Mhm.
is a lot. What would you say has been the biggest blessing um, that you've received from doing the work that you do?
Seeing my clients actually make advances. Like the gal that I mentioned, Jamie, that didn't want to do video with her dog at a rehabilitation, she now has 30,000, almost 30,000 followers on Instagram and a thriving business online.
Mm.
Um, so seeing the changes, but not only the number changes and the opportunities for making money, but it's more about personal development and seeing them shine and do what they're meant to do and do it joyfully. Like it brings them joy, and that brings me joy because I know that God has put me in this position at this time for this purpose to help them. And it just, there's not a price tag on it, really.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. The seeing the light bulbs go off, seeing the momentum and the successes that they have is really, really, really gratifying. And it's even juicier than when we achieve something significant, or at least it is for me a lot of the time. Um,
Mhm.
okay, well, we'll just wrap up with a few lightweight questions, like what's one regret that you have, and what did you learn from it? So, what's one of your major regrets in life, and what did you learn from it?
I have
Might
a lot of regrets.
might not be, might be personal, might be recent or not, whatever that may be. What's one regret you have, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I regret not starting this soon, what I'm doing now sooner. And what I mean by that is, so when I first started my blog, like 15 years ago, I just used it as a family blog. And I knew that God was asking me to like just be more public, but I didn't want to because I didn't want anyone to know about me. And I was afraid people would criticize. I was afraid I didn't know enough. I was afraid, what if they fault find, I don't know. I just was afraid of people. And I feel like had I started sooner, like I was supposed to do, I could have helped so many more women,
Mhm.
by now and just been in a different place. So I regret putting it off when I knew I was supposed to do.
And so, what did you learn from that, or what advice would you give others as a result of that?
Well, now I tell them, um, if you have an inkling about something, then take one step and see, take a step at a time and see where it leads you. Of course, commit it to prayer, but you know, you won't know unless you step out and stop being scared. Oh my goodness. I want to leave a legacy of courage.
Oh,
And
wait.
I just wrote a book called Emptiness Awakening, Weaving the Threads of Your Passions into Purpose. And in that book, I talk about, and I polled a bunch of women that I've worked with, what do you want your legacy to be? And I want mine to be a legacy of courage and not of fear, because our lives are halfway over already. What are we afraid of? Don't be afraid. Go ahead and do what you think you should do, and step out in faith. Start doing it and stop being afraid. There's no reason for fear.
Beautiful. That's perfect. That was going to be my last question for you, but you answered it this way or now. That's awesome. So how can people find out more about your products and services? So tell them your website and spell that out for us.
Okay, they can go to AuthenticOnlineMarketing.com. It's just like it sounds. And you'll see that I have my Authentic Online Marketing School, the perfect blend of Instagram and email marketing. And then I have also one-on-one client coaching. And then I have a short, small Instagram course.
Okay, awesome. And so, of course, they can find you on Instagram. Where? How?
At Ruthie Gray. They can just search Ruthie Gray. It's the handle is Ruthie Gray Author. Okay. And you'll find all of my a bunch of things, a bunch of tips for online marketing over there.
Okay.
And funny reels.
And you had plenty of reels, no doubt. All right. You mentioned that really what you want your legacy to be is a legacy of courage. And I heard that both in terms of you being courageous and inspiring courage in others. What's one last piece of advice you'd like to leave everyone with?
Stop putting something off if you have a niggling that you should be doing it. Stop putting it off. Stop, damping down or tamping down your inner voice there.
Great reminder. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've stayed here to the end, that's probably exactly what you needed to hear. So stop putting it off. Go take a step. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Ruthie. And thank you for being a stand to inspire courage in people to be seen and heard, to put themselves out there and to follow that call. I appreciate the work that you do to support them in doing that.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure to be here and talk about it.
Awesome. And for the rest of you, it is now your time to inspire, not retire. So what's one step you can take today to follow that call? Bye for now. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.